I'm Enrique Gonzalez Mueller, and welcome to Are You Listening? In this episode, we will unleash an epic battle between guitars and keyboards. We will be assessing what are main parts, what are secondary parts. This will give us a ton of room for creativity. Remember to check out show notes for tools, episodes, and resources, and I'll see you in there. Guitars and keyboards. I'll be right back. We are going to aboard guitars and keyboards in one fell swoop. Why? Because these will give us an opportunity to talk about the can of worms that is the mid-range. This track is mainly guitar driven, but this mid-range conundrum we're going to go see in a minute involves the keyboards in their mid-range awesomeness symbiotically having to fit in. Let's listen to the arrangement to just see what we got. We're also going to, as we've done before, talk about the emotional objectives and roles of each part. So let's start dividing these, because there's a lot of stuff here, as you can see, into what is a main foundational part and what is an accessory. Let's listen actually from the pre-chorus 2 through the solo. And then we're going to dive in and hit solo to see specifically what we've been given. Guitars, keyboards. Let's go in and listen to the main parts. So what's the criteria for a main part? It's something that is not only quite protagonist, but also is responsible and takes up a lot of either frequency or spatial real estate, right? So a main guitar rhythm rather than a little ornament that happens on the bridge. So for me in the pre-chorus, this is the first main part. The next main guitar part for me is this. But this main guitar part is also paired with this synth part down here. So this part is connected to this. And then as we move forward in the chorus, this would be another one. How about the guitar solo? Those are the main parts. How about the more ornamental? Here we have a guitar trem. Then we have a second guitar trem that sounds like this. Then we have some acoustic guitars that come in the heavy part of the chorus, I believe. Then we have some more acoustic guitars happening in the bridge. So those to me are secondary parts. They don't make up the bones of the mix. Then moving on to the synths, we have and that just is meant to take up a little bit of width. How about this organ here? meant to provide suspense and suspense. Then we have this thing here. Oh, sorry, what was that? Oh, pardon me. Oh, did you? That's it. And then we have effects. Good old siren. We have this thing. It's a little wobble. Then we have something called a bird. Sounds like a bird who's not having a great day. Then we have something called a dog. Sounds like a dog not having a great day. This is the theme here. And then we have this intro.
Fucking suck at guitar.
Language. So there's a lot here. We are going to keep things organized by tackling the main stuff first and the secondary stuff as accessories later. Whew. Are you ready for the rock? Let's start with these guitars. So these guitars, they're supposed to be this AC/DC moment. I want it to be kind of bright and loud and wide, kind of as classic of a sound as we can get, or at least the feeling of this, right? But we also want to create a track that feels a little kind of cutting edge and more modern. So what we have here is not bad, but it just doesn't pop. It's not bright enough. It needs a little bit more edge. So the first thing is I am putting this awesome modular neutron, which has punch. And basically what I'm trying to do is get a little bit of articulation, because right now the guitars are da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, and I want them to be a little bit more ga-na-na-gang-gang-gang-gang-gang, and I want them to expand a little to create not a compressed dynamic range, but rather create a little bit more of a discrepancy between the notes and the silence. So I'm dialing the attack that I want, the sustain that I want, and then I'm pushing to taste until I find that. So let's go back to 0, and then I'm going to push forward so you can hear what it does. I'm digging that. Then afterwards, we revisited this compressor before, and I want just to add a little bit of snap. So this is reining it in, but adding a little bit more of a wall of sound, if you will. And this is ultimately going to give us a little more uniform punch. Then I'm going to distort the distortion. Why? Because there's no fear in our hearts or something like that. What I want is to create more of a sheen here. And I just want to reshape what we have. So if we have this originally, so you're starting to see that this falls into that kind of exploratory way of mixing again, right? I'm trying to build something and then I go, you know what? I need to really resculpt this, and I do so here. This, of course, is giving me less kind of classic rock and a little bit more metal, but I'm liking it. I'm liking that it gives that kind of extra, that kind of haven't heard before in this context, little flavor. Then we have this bit of EQ. Look at the filter. What do you guys observe? I'm lopping out a lot of low end and I'm lopping off a lot of top end. The low end, we've done this before, right? And we are keeping some room for the kick. We're also keeping some room for the bass. But what about the top end? This I learned from producer Dave Fortman, who did a lot of the Evanescence stuff. Back in the day, I was assisting some mixes that Dave was doing. And I remember at the end of the day going to see his guitar EQ. And I remember all of these filters were put in doing this very thing. And when I took them out, the guitars were giganormous and huge. And I thought, why doesn't Dave prefer the bigger sound rather than this small contained sound? And when I asked, Dave, basically to paraphrase, said, distorted guitars, think of them as white noise. They just want to take over the world. They want to dominate. So these filters are helping me keep the low end tidy, but also the top end, right? The cymbals, the articulation of the vocals, until you find the sweet spot where they're popping out, they sound aggressive, but they don't eat the rest of the stuff. So here, listen to the before and after. One more time, listen to the clarity of the bass and the clarity of the cymbals when this is in. There you go. Of course, if you do the before and after, it sounds not as big, but nobody's going to have access to the before. So my question is, without seeing all this stuff, does it rock? Yes, it does. It sounds good. It sounds great. It rocks. Last thing on these guitars is we have our little sidechain compression that just keeps our kicks and snares a little bit more articulate. So if I'm going to bypass these all very quickly. This is where we started. And this is where we ended up. We're not done. We're not even close because we have a lot of other guitars and keyboards. The next main thing we have is this here. You might remember this was a single stereo track. So what I did here was I made a duplicate copy of it and slid one by about 16 milliseconds so they could be a little bit different. And yes, they're going to be a little bit out of phase. And then you see all of those little chops. That's basically me trying to grab da-na, ba-be-deep. Every time it goes da-na, I'm grabbing da-na since the note is the same, and I chopped those two notes and I moved them so that they could be kind of a mirror of each other. So think about it. If you have the same signal, you copy it, you have two copies, and you pan one to the left and one to the right, you're going to get mono. But if you have two different signals and you pan them hard left and hard right, then you're going to get stereo, right? So if I have da-na, those two hits are going to be different, but they're the same note. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the second one and I am making a copy of it and I'm sliding it under the first one. And I'm making this jigsaw puzzle so that I can have very different performances of the same note. I hope that's not too confusing. Basically, what I'm trying to do is create two different guitar parts out of the same one. It's a lot of editing, but check it out. Now I have stereo. So on the other one, meaning the double that I've created, I've just put a little amp emulator to make it brighter. So I'm trying to make them match and be equally as bright. Now let's find a sound and a vibe for this. Before I go in and start unmuting everything that I did, let's try to find a direction. What should these guitars be? They're kind of nasal, they're kind of high, and they're supposed to be heavy parts, but the note range is so high and the tone is so slinky and it's so not rocking. Sorry. And I want something that gives this that edge of it's rock, but it just sounds a little extra. So I'm putting these 2 guitar tracks out of an aux, and I'm going to be processing this aux. But before that, I am adding 2 bass amp simulators. And the reason why I'm putting a bass amp simulator is because I'm trying to find the low end, the body that I can get out of these. I'm also cranking them quite a bit so that I can get more level out of them. And this is going to get loud. Sorry about that. I told you it was going to get loud. I am going to turn on this instance of relay, bringing things down by minus 18 dB. This is going to be one of those exploratory items, right? That this sound is going to be so quirky, I'm having to turn something on and then retrack and sculpt a little bit, so anticipate that. All right, so this is what we had before. So it's a little bit brighter, but it also has a little bit more mid-range that I really like. And then we start trying to find a lot of distortion. If I turn this on, which is the first plugin, it's a little deceiving because check out how this is going to sound. Not very flattering, right? So I put this plugin on and I started putzing with it because I loved what it did to the bass. And I wasn't quite getting too much out of it, so I just kind of left it. And then I turned on this other plugin, Dirt. And I'm kind of digging it, right? I put it on and it immediately went, I am not polite. I'm coming for you and your children. Run! I'm digging it. And the thing about it is that it's too bright. So I started playing with all of these different parameters. And again, you're seeing me button push on a bunch of specific things, but I want you to think about concepts, right? I put on a saturator. Basically, you make an educated guess. It didn't quite get me there. I put on another one. It got me closer, but not quite. I started tweaking until I was getting closer and closer and closer to the sound in my head with this Dirt plugin. Didn't quite ever get there because it was always too bright. So then I got back to my Byte plugin, and that beforehand made it darker. And you see that it went from just, it got a little bit more nasal. Yes, you love it when I sing out what plugins do. It's subtle, but it does change the shape of the top end and some of that mid-range. So I'm going to turn this off, turn it on, and then put on Byte. Check it out. Just a little bit more contained. Then you might remember our friend that we made things wider for the drums. I'm going to use it now on guitars because I guess it looks like a guitar. Now it's going to want to eat the world again. It's getting big and big and big. So now I'm putting in a finishing touch of Neutron to rein it in. We've done some of these concepts before, so I'll just go quickly over them. At the end, I'm going to go backwards now. We have a compressor that is doing a sidechain, so it's going to react to our drums. I'm putting an exciter because at the end, I wanted to give it a little bit of a forward crisp. EQ, look at this. You can already guesstimate what's happening here. We're saving the low end for the kick and bass. We're shaving this off for the cymbals. And this is the harshness in the middle that is probably taking the protagonism from the bass. And you see here that I have my masking module on and bass. So we're going to look at that in a minute. Compressor with this punch module, I am getting a little bit more articulation as I expand the sound. And unmasking, looking at kicks and snares, as that's what's coming in the key. It's a lot of stuff, guys, but I told you, we're in Explorationville. So this is the before. Dramatically changing. Yes, welcome to mixing. The wondrous up and down paths that we take to get to our final destination. I'm going to mute these and I will reveal to you what these do module to module. This is not your neat and tidy. This is the sound that I want, and I just go get it with one plugin. It's a whole mess of stuff, but this is a very particular, weird, and awesome, unique sound, and this is what it took to dial it in. So brainwash yourself to, we haven't heard this before. How does it sound in context? I love it. And it sounds almost like a horn section going off. Really, really punchy, wide. It's a guitar, but I haven't heard something like this before. We're doing awesome. What is our next thing we're going to tackle? The choruses, we have this sound right here. So here we had said we have sound that is made up of a bunch of different sounds, right? We have this. We also have this. We also have this. The main sound, the body, is going to come from this one. So the thing that I want is to deteriorate it a little bit and have it sound a little bit smaller so that it can then give us room for the heavy, weird, awesome guitars that we just made. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm putting this low F-I-A-F, I don't know how to, LMFAO, I don't know how to pronounce this thing, but it's this deteriorator. So I'm playing with the presets until I went, that sounds good. And good sounds like this. It's a little garglier, that's another word, which I liked. And then here I'm adding a little bit of delay for depth. And that to me is muffled enough and weird enough. Remember that we have those other two tracks, right? And I'm counting that the guitar is going to give me the top end sheen. So that this is muffled is okay, because this is part of a master plan. So now let's pop in this other one. Oh, it's wide and it's pretty. What I want is to give it a little more character, and that character is almost like the reverb to that other sound. This is how I'm envisioning it. I'm putting a little bit of delay. Before. After. And I'm having that eighth note bounce that gives it a little bit more width and it makes it a little bit dreamier. And then I am getting a little weird and creative with Nectar because, yes, it's awesome. We have EQ, we have saturation, and we have, again, harmony. Voices only, I'm having those unison notes just be wider and a little bit brighter. Then saturation. And then finally EQ, a little bit of house cleaning. So this is the before. And now I'm going to play for you the original track, the main track rather, and then I'm going to put this in halfway through so you can hear my intended reverb for it. And I'm going to do it now backwards. I'm going to put it in and then I'm going to take it out. So you see that sheen that makes it a little bit dreamier goes away. And then finally, let's go over this little guitar texture. Okay, same thing. This is the top end though. I'm trying to just, again, make it weird. EQ, dimension, delay, saturation, trying to give it another texture behind that main one. So this is the before. Whoa, dude, it totally went elsewhere. Yes. It's meant to be reverb and delay for that other one. And then finally we have here a little compressor ducking out with the kicks and snares. So I'm going to play the main one and then add the other two. And then it sounds great. We might revisit this as we always do. Once we maybe put in the vocals, this is going to have to be massaged a little bit, but we're doing good. I'm going to ask you a question and then I'm going to ask you a favor. Are you tired? No. Oh, thank you. Good. So knowing that you're not tired, my favor is stay there. Don't be tired because we got one more thing to do, and that is the rockin' guitar solo. Does it rock though? Does it rock though? Not really. So, what do we want this to be? When this guitar solo grows up, what could it be? Let's try to have it fulfill its potential. The tone is kind of nasal and it's not very polite, but it's a little too polite for not being polite. Okay, make some sense out of this. If we listen, my gut reaction is this just needs more distortion. And the distortion that I'm feeling is not very amp-like, but more transistor broken radio. So here I'm putting this mod of an orange amp, but I am turning off the speaker. So here I can turn this off completely and have it be more like this. Aw, yeah. So before, after. It's hairier. I like it. So again, I'm starting with my best educated guess, right? It's an amp sound, but it's more like a transistor radio. So I'm taking off the speaker and then I tweak from there. It has too much low end. Here you see how I'm tightening things up. Nothing below 514 hertz. So I can start doing some pre-EQ on this side. And then for good measure, I am, of course, doing a little bit of articulation here. So the sound is so hairy and saturated that we've lost some of the articulation. And this is, again, this punch module where I'm expanding the sound, creating more of a dynamic range between the notes and the quiet notes. So here, the before. When you hear it just kind of shuts off in a clearer way. Then we have this double track here. It's kind of doing the same thing. It's a little bit panned to the right. What's the purpose of this? I'm basically going to treat this as reverb in a way. So I'm putting in a little bit of delay. And I am also cleaning it up a little. So these two processes together are just meant to give it a little bit of a shadow, if you will. So is going to be a shadow to this. Together, it's just giving it a little bit of dimension. And this now concludes our main parts of this track. We have, if we look back, rockin' more traditional guitars in the pre-choruses and choruses. We have those kind of horn section like guitars in the choruses that sound quite unique. We have this gnarly synth driven psychedelic sound in the choruses, and we have a solo tone that will scrape off the paint of your favorite sportsmobile. So with that, let's take a deep breath as we are halfway done with guitars and synths. We have a whole mess of tracks that are peppering this production in the guitar and synth keyboard realm. These are not foundational parts. They're meant to be fun and, again, just peppering with a little bit of personality here and there. The first one goes like this. It's a siren. Right, that announces the beginning of the chorus. So here, I made some creative fades. Listen to how it used to be. It goes where, and then it continues, but the dong ding ba-da-da-da-dang is still going on, and you can't really hear the siren, and it kind of masks the other things. So what I'm doing here is making a fade out. So now it feels a little bit cleaner. Check it out. And again, the thing that I would like to achieve with this one is give it a little bit more space. Pushes it back a little bit, and then the little cleanup is before. Just a little detail, so. It's not a huge thing, but we are just looking out for character and having these items not muddy up the rest of the foundational tracks. So, also happening simultaneously, we have, and it's meant to accentuate the beginning of the chorus. If we hear it though, you can hear that super high frequency stuff, and then it just kind of goes away. But if we solo it, check it out. There's a lot to it. So what I'm trying to do here is shape it so that I can hear that modulation throughout the whole note, which is trickier than it sounds. So I'm adding a little bit of space. Cool. Then I'm adding this weird EQ. House cleaning, right? Nothing below 488. But I'm also adding this dynamic bit of EQ. Since we have that, it's changing. The frequency footprint of the sound is changing through time. So I'm adding this dynamically to kind of keep it in place. So this is what it was before. Listen to the top end and the mid-range. And this is what this is doing. So you're seeing that I'm shaving off a lot of top end, but when it reacts in the middle, it's keeping it contained so that when you close your eyes, it just sounds like one sound that is occupying the same frequency footprint. Then we have Stereo Maker to do just that, make it more stereo. And then we have this bit of side chain compression. But I'm going to push it back, and this is, again, just a little detail. There. If I put it any louder, it's going to start distracting you from down, dang, which is the main thing. Moving on, let's just go from the top. We have this guitar trem part. So what's the point? It's a little accent, but it's also at the very beginning of the chorus where we need our cognitive abilities not to be bogged down with ba-da, which is a motif, but rather dong ding ba-da-da-da-ding. I am going to just make this creepy and reverby. Nectar Pro with EQ, saturation, reverb, delay, delay, delay. We went from this to this. And then because we just want to deepen the magic, because we need all attention on that main doom, bam, ba-da-da-da-dun, and this is just reverb in the back. Then we have this thing that starts the pre-choruses. What's the purpose of ding 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 ding? It's a section delineator, obviously, meaning this thing comes in to make it obvious for the listener that a new section is coming in. The thing about it is I want it to sound a little bit more wounded. What's coming afterwards, those big heavy parts, are supposed to be very strong and robust. So the weaker I make the stuff before, the bigger the other stuff is going to seem. So we went from this to this. And you see that it sounds more scrawny and gritty. So now we have something that and it makes that heavy part that much heavier. Then we have these acoustic guitars, and these acoustic guitars here are just meant to be accents. Check them out. Rhythm, and then we have them in the chorus again. So they're really meant to be something that provides a little richness for the heavy guitars in the chorus. So what I really want out of them is just to not move dynamically, hence this little compressor. A little bit more of a snap, and then a little bit of cleanup. All of that low end off is just leaving space for those big guitars. So together, hard to hear. The only thing that I want to hear from this acoustic guitar, you're hearing me, right? The only thing I want to hear from you is that little of the pick up there. That's it. A little bit of articulation. So I'm going to play it without and then with. It's a headphone thing, and that's fine. Here we start to get into the whole sonic canvas is already pretty filled up. If I make this any more prominent, something has to give, and these are not protagonist parts. So following that rule of thumb, let's go to the acoustics during the bridge, and this is what we got. It's meant to be something that accompanies and draws contrast from the hairiness of that solo guitar. So we went from this, and now I put a little bit of cleanup in there. And this kind of goes with the claps. Do you guys remember the claps? Those claps, you might remember that I thought, oh, I want them to sound like they're in a gym far away, and I want these guitars to also feel like they are recorded with a phone. So this gets me closer to that feeling. And then this gives them a little bit of little bit of a spank of compression that also makes it feel like it was recorded with a phone. What are we missing? What are we missing? What are we missing? Oh, we did not address the intro. So the intro is the very beginning of the track, which is mighty important, right?
Fucking suck at guitar.
Again, language. This needs to sound forward because it's the very beginning of the song and it takes a few seconds to get through. So if we don't give the listeners something to pay attention to and worth their while, they might turn this off. So I am giving this a little bit of quirk with our friend Lo-Fi AF or Lofief. Our friend Lofief here.
Suck at guitar.
This is a bit of compression, and it's also shaving off some of that low end. So this is the before.
Fucking suck at guitar.
And it's just bringing it forward.
Fucking suck at guitar.
And now we have a better transition, and we can even put the dog in there.
Fucking suck at guitar.
It's a subliminal dog, but it's in there, okay? So, yes. We do have two more. These two pads at the very end of the track. I'm getting these 70s psychedelic vibes, dude. Oh my God. I'm having dreams of neon lights. What are we going to do with these? I want to make them brighter and I want to have them modulate more. So the first thing that I have here is Neutron. You can see already a ton of cleaning, a little bit of dynamic EQ to have it not mask our guitars and bass. I'm adding a little bit of saturation and our good old side compression for the drums. So I'm going to put this in context, and I would like for you to hear how much it cuts through versus the opposite, not cutting through without this stuff. Two things. When I bypass, I want you to hear how it's devouring the bass and the guitars. And then when I pop it in, I want you to hear how it clears up and it just reshifts, adding some of that top sheen that then becomes the development of chorus 3. You heard that, right? Yeah. Totally. And then because we love psychedelic stuff, we need flanger. And there, the neon lights are shining bright. This is the vibe. And then we have our super suspenseful. That's right, just that mono note. So here, just a little bit of, yes, sidechain compression, distortion, and a lot of housekeeping. Just a little more nasal, just a little headphoney thing. So without. It's a little hard to hear. It's one of these, you more feel it than hear it, and that's what it should be. Now we're done. Whew. That took a bit, but look at this. Look at this, guys. All of these guitar tracks are in, synth and keyboard tracks are in. Whew. As we did with the bass, everything is in place, but we need to take a step back and just see if what we've put there is really as uniform and present as we'd like it to be. So the first thing that I want to point your attention to is this third chorus. Here we have this motif that comes in. And this is a development, and it really should pop through, but it's sounding a little bit muddy to me. So this synth here is also doubled with this bass. So as I listen to this and I'm feeling like it's a little bit muddy, who is the culprit for the muddiness? I think it's this track. So that track, which is a little bit distorted and kind of gritty and just going a little too much down there. If I shave that off a little bit, it's going to give us some clarity. So here you see that I've made a little automation move and I have turned it off. So here in Stylish Black is what I am going to do. In Stylish Blue, if you can see there, that is where the static fader would be. So let's listen with the fader statically off so that it never moves. Take in the clarity of the part, and then I'm going to put the automation on, and I want you to hear how it clears up. And here. Way better. One more time. It clears right up very, very well. Another bit of automation that I did was on that same part. Here you see, if I zoom in, that I have these tiny little automation bumps. In the onset and in the transition to the end, I was not quite getting the detail of the note. So I'm going to play it without automation and listen specifically for the clarity of the entrance and the exit. And this again, I'm talking about this part here. So again, here it is, before. And here is the after. The difference to me is that I don't have to squint to hear it. I just hear that first note sing to me. Bam, bang, which of course has a heavy kick, probably a crash. I bump it up so that it feels more uniform. And that at the end just sings clear so that it can signal the entrance to the next heavier section. Check it out. There we have it. And it just sounds clear. Then we have this part here. So you see here that I have my automation is off, but you see what my automation is doing. That first note I'm raising up, the second note I'm bringing down, and then I'm doing a build. These first two moves are for dynamic uniformity. The second note was just louder. I'm compensating, equalizing, and then this third little bit is just a little bit of melodrama. So this is without, check it out. this is with. Subtle, but without it, it's just a little bit harder to hear. These little moves, which in solo sound like this, are giving these parts the nuance that they need in order for them to sing. Along those lines of melodrama, because yes, we get all dramatic, we have this guitar solo here. And we have that little bit of reverb, which I am boosting a ton to create a little bit of a swell that then drops off in the chorus. If I solo these two together, so there you have it. These are all of our last little automation moves that you see I'm doing across the whole track, but these are the big concepts. So as we did with the bass, this is something that I highly, highly encourage you to do. Again, for just dynamic presence and uniformity, also to create some expression and drama across. So do not miss out on this step. It's important. But at some point, we got to sit back and bask on the awesomeness that has been our work. So we have put in all of these guitars to all of these little effects and synths so far. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Fucking suck a guitar.